but I actually cried as I went across the start line because it was like leaving one life behind and I had to reinvent myself with another one.
Chris is the 72-year-old fitness influencer breaking the internet. She holds a Guinness World Record, has run over 125 marathons across all 7 continents, including Antarctica. And she didn't run her first marathon until the weekend she retired from her life as a head teacher. Christine,
Hi.
most people Christine, most people celebrate retirement with a party or a vacation. You laced up your running shoes and ran the London Marathon. What was going through your mind on the morning of the race?
Well, I've managed to invent a code to try and get out of it, but the rest of the family weren't having it. So I thought, oh, I'm going to have to do it. But I actually cried as I went across the start line because it was like leaving one life behind and I had to reinvent myself with another one, which I had no idea what I was going to do.
And I want to circle back to you reinventing yourself. You said that was supposed to be your only marathon.
Yes. Yeah. It was just to prove to myself that I wasn't on the scrap heap. And we had a big weekend because my daughter was a championship runner and she got a place. Her husband had got a place. Me and my husband had retired that weekend and he was 60 that weekend. So it was quite a humdinger of a weekend, really.
That's a lot to process in one weekend, but you turned it into marathon tourism, where all of a sudden you've been to all 7
Yeah.
continents to run a
Yeah.
marathon.
Yeah, well, we ended up. I actually did my 100 marathons first, because I met somebody at my second race, my second marathon, with a 100 marathon T-shirt on, and asked her what was that about, and she said, "Oh, we're celebrating someone who's done the 100th today." So I trotted off and thought, well, what a ridiculous thing. Why would anyone do that? And then I thought, well, you did look for something to do while you were retired. And so in my second marathon, I quietly decided I was going to do 100. And then we ended up at in New Zealand early the year after, and it was like our big holiday, a retirement holiday. And we were going for the Cricket World Cup. And I just said, oh, I wonder if there's a marathon while I'm there. Anyway, long story short, I got my first big continent. And then my husband, who never runs a step, I had, thought it was a really good idea for us to become marathon tourists and me do all my continents. And so we did.
And what have been some of your favorite places to visit to run?
Oh, if you ignore Antarctica, because that's like a biggie on its own, I've several, but Buenos Aires is my all-time favorite. And that was for several reasons, but one of them was they're mainly younger men, or they were at the time, that did marathons there. And so there were very few women, and definitely not many with hair like mine, which, is somewhat white to say the least. And so anyway, so I ran this marathon. And I got to within about a mile of the end, and these young women ran out into the road, half a dozen or so of them, picked me up and twirled me round in their hands, sort of like a championship twirl round, and said, go lady, go, and just put me down and patted me on the back, and off I went again. And I thought, well, that's a bit different. So, but they couldn't imagine anyone my age and female doing it. So it was one of those moments you'll never forget.
That sounds like a tremendous energy boost as you're
Yeah,
winding down that marathon, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. Oh, it was great. I mean, the other problem there was the toilets. I've got lots of toilet stories from abroad, but this one they had. I think it was something like 10,000 runners, and they had 17 toilets. But there was no water in the toilets, no water to flush it or to wash your hands. But after every third person, a little man with a bucket jumped out from behind the toilet and made everyone go back and clean the toilet. So that was fine, apart from half the field, it wasn't even at the start line when it started. And then halfway around, I saw a bank of toilets, and I thought, oh, great, and there's no queue, nothing. So I got there, and there was a fella waiting, and he basically said that there was only one toilet working. So I waited for him to go through. Started to go in. The little man came out. This was in the middle of the race, when your watch is going. It came out, refused to let me go in until he cleaned the toilet. So I don't know how many minutes I lost with that one, but that was definitely an interesting one, was that one.
That is an incredibly humorous story, so I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Well, at least I don't have to meet you and look at you in the face when every time you see me, you think of toilets.
That is tremendous. Oh, man. I'm sure it wasn't as funny during the moment when you really had to go, though.
Well, I just cracked out laughing because it was just absolutely bizarre.
Yes. Shifting gears a little bit more serious, you become the oldest woman to run the ice marathon across Antarctica.
Yes.
Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Right. Well, I tried initially to get to a place. I think I first tried in 2017. And I'd finished all my other continents, so I had just this one to do. And we found one that was off a cruise ship, like an adventure cruise with all sorts of weird things, and there was a marathon off it. Except all those ships were Russian research ships, and they decided that they wanted them in the Arctic instead of down in Antarctica. And so the trip got cancelled because the ships went. Then I tried again, and the next one got impounded in Buenos Aires because it hadn't paid its fuel bill. And then the third one I tried, which I thought I'd crack because the fella that runs them, I know, and he organises lots of races, and he'd had a mild heart attack in the summer. And so he cancelled, and he cancelled at the end of October. And I think I should have been going January 2023 by this time. And so I was so fed up with it all. I mean, I understood him, but the other things were a right mess. So I got in touch with everybody that I knew that ran such things. And the ones that I'd been doing were right up on the tip on King George Island. So they weren't actually on the mainland. But when I'd written to everybody, a couple of days later, I got an email back from the people that run the ice marathon, which is a few hundred miles from the South Pole, which I'd never thought of going, A, because it was mega expensive, and B, because my husband felt we couldn't pay that money for him to just stand there. And so that's why we were going for the cruise ships. And so anyway, I got in touch with him, and he got back to me, and he said, it was a good job I was sat down. He said to me, we have a place, someone's cancelled, but it's in 3 weeks. And I sort of thought, oh, hell, what do I do now? Because my husband had no idea that I'd asked about this one. He was sat on the settee, completely innocent of all this. And so I went and just showed him my iPad. And he just looked and he went, just do it. so, so we just did it. 3 weeks. The bank wouldn't pay out the money because they thought I was being scammed, because old ladies at 69 I was then don't do marathons in Antarctica in 3 weeks, and they didn't believe a word of it. So I got to the stage I couldn't even go to the supermarket. They completely shut all my accounts down for a couple of days. Anyway, I did get the money in the end. Insurance was really hard to get because I was then getting older. So really the logistics of it are probably harder than the actual running. I mean, that was a bit exciting as well, but it wasn't. I've done worse marathons than the one in Antarctica, shall we say.
Curious about the difference in Antarctica, though, because there's no life there and it's completely silent. What was that experience like?
Oh, well, the silence was it was quite scary because I'd heard that, musicians say silence is a sound. And I used to think, oh, yeah, you're just sort of making it up sort of thing. But it really is. And it was oppressive on the ears somehow, and quite scary because we're, I suppose we're pack animals, where there's ambient noise all the time around us in the real world. And there, when there was no wind that day, and it was just, I just can't describe what the silence was like. I just stood there in the middle of the race just to listen to it, and I couldn't believe what it was like. And getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, again to go to the toilet, although it was really to go and have a look outside, because at 2 o'clock in the morning, the sun was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was right over your head. And I'd never thought it would be like that, because programs I'd seen about the Arctic, and they show the sun going down and touching the horizon and going back up again. Well, this was just in a little circle above your head. It was really bright because the air is thin there. So that was really stunning as well.
Chris, you have a whole abundance of stories and experience to share. The one question that I'm so excited to ask you about is, what is your best advice for anyone who wants to reinvent themselves?
It's easy, but you don't know you're doing it at the time, usually. When I retired, I decided I wanted to be fit to be old, as in to enjoy my old age. And that was my whole motivation. And I decided that I would pretend that I was a professional athlete, and I would do everything for myself as if I was a professional athlete. And that all came from an ex-mother-in-law some time ago. I'd actually, when I got a promotion in work at one time, and I said, I don't really know what the job is. And she said, just pretend and you will become. So I thought, right, I'll just pretend I'm an athlete and hope that that's what I become. And so that's what I did. And I think that was the best, probably, advice I've ever had, because it takes the fear out of everything, because it's like you're just getting on stage and pretending.
During that time while you were pretending to become or pretending to be that type of athlete,
Yeah.
did you ever doubt yourself along the way?
I don't doubt myself very often, I'm afraid. But I suppose there were times when, particularly in the early marathons, the training was really hard. Whereas when I started doing big numbers, I didn't do long runs on my own. There were always races, and so it was much easier because people drag you along. You go in the flow. And so I suppose those early couple of the marathons when I wasn't sure. Well, there was really one in New Zealand. When I saw this race that I did, it was advertised for runners and walkers. And I thought, bearing in mind this was only going to be my third marathon. So I thought, this is great. I'll be fine. I don't need to worry about times or anything like that. Well, what I didn't realise is that New Zealand, one of their national sports is speed walking. And they weren't meaning walking, they were meaning speed walking, as in 4 hour marathon speed walking. And when I got to the start and this shot off, and this fellow went round the first bend like a car on two wheels, he leant to the side, and I just thought, oh my God. And that was probably the most frightening moment in any of the marathons I had, because I just thought, what on earth have I let myself in for? And I did finish, but I never saw the speed walkers again.
That is incredible. And you're doing more than running, you're also lifting weights and taking care of your body. What are some of your top habits?
Oh, well, I think I started weightlifting, as in powerlifting. Well, I spoke to my trainer the other day, and I said I was about 70, and she said, "No, you weren't. You'd been doing it for a couple of years." And I said, "No, I hadn't. I wasn't lifting heavy weight." And she said, "I spent 2 years preparing you to be safe to lift those weights." And so she felt that I was powerlifting, but just with lighter weights that I could cope with, so I could get my body in the right positions and what have you. And I think that was probably the best thing we could have done, because I'm sure that, I've never been injured while I've been powerlifting, or, never struggled. I mean, I'm not lifting massive weights, but I'm 50 kilos, I think, and my deadlift is 75, and I think my bench and my squat are both 45. So I suppose it's nearly my body weight, but more like a hybrid athlete, I suppose. If you can call me an athlete at all, because I do the both of them, and I like do one leads and the other follows at different times of the year, depending on what. She keeps trying to get me to do a competition, and she nearly got me to one this last year, and then I found a race I wanted, and she was like a petulant teenager, because I've gone off on one again and to do another race.
Chris, if you want to be called a hybrid athlete, we'll certainly call you a hybrid athlete.
Well, it's the only way to describe, because I do run both of them, and if anything, I probably like the lifting more than the running. But I've been doing the running so long, and it's so easy to lose that if I don't keep it up. So I wouldn't like to lose it and then find that I've made an awful mistake. So I keep them both going.
Excellent. Chris, you're such an inspiration. What do you hope people take away from your story?
I hope that they realise, because certainly on my Instagram and TikTok, there are still some people that think I must have been a real super athlete when I was younger, and that I'm sort of telling a bit of a tale with it. And when I was 14 at school, my PE teacher said Christine is an utter nuisance in class, because I would do anything, absolutely anything, to not do sport, because I was small, I was skinny. They called me sparrow legs. That was my nickname. So if you just did two little sticks with bubbles for the knees, honestly, I was the most unfit person in all the world. And so I think if I can do stuff, I think they just see the end product and they don't see where I've come from, that you've just, spent 12 years of just doing a bit and then finding you do a bit more and then finding you do a bit more. And then suddenly, after 5 or 6 years, you turn around and think, well, where's all that come from? I can't believe it. So it's that consistency and just keeping it going.
And I ask all my guests, the idea of simple wins is more than just the scoreboard. What does simple wins mean to you?
The simple wins all the way through were to finish my marathon in a fit state to do the next one, which meant I didn't go crazy about speed. Not that I had any speed, but I didn't push myself. And so I always worked on the principle that when I finished that race, within a week or a few weeks, I should be fit to do the next one. And that was my simple win. It was coming out uninjured and still with enough energy to recover.
And I know your granddaughter's helped you go viral on social media now.
No, I know she's ever so jealous because hers didn't go viral. Yeah, we actually learned. Well, she said it was a place to be, because I've sort of got an inkling of wanting to do the North Pole Marathon. So I've got top and bottom. But it is very expensive, and I need to probably get myself known. And so she decided that I should go on TikTok. But she lives in Norwich, and I live in Huddersfield, which is probably about 400 miles or something between. So she first of all taught me how to screen share, which was very simple, but I didn't even know I could do it with her. And she taught me how to create TikTok by screen sharing before Christmas last year. And once I'd done that, well, things kept going wrong at the beginning and we had major disasters, and she'd get back on and screen share and help me sort it out. But now I'm actually... But she likes doing bits of all sorts. She doesn't concentrate. I've kept myself to a narrow niche. And so I've ended up becoming known for that niche, really, which is sort of exercise for life, training for life for older people, particularly women. But my viewing age range, the big viewing age range I have, is 25 to 44. not the top, not that top end. I've got people in that top end, but actually I've got more younger women than I have older women, which I find fascinating. And they're very vocal. You know what women are like for talking lots.
Yeah. And you're an incredible inspiration to millions.
Well, they seem to like it.
Well, please keep doing what you're doing. What platforms can people find you on?
They can find me on Instagram, which is Christine Hobson 60, and on TikTok, Christine World Record, because that was what I'd started it for originally.
Chris, you're an inspiration. We appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me on. Thanks.
I have one final question for you. Who else would benefit from listening to this conversation? If you have someone in mind, go ahead and share the episode with them right now. If you don't think of anyone immediately, go ahead and leave us a review on whatever platform you're on so people just like you can find the episode. Thank you for your time. Stay strong.